The docking bay of Frontier Station 9 was always noisy. Sparks from welding tools flashed in the shadows, engines rumbled in the distance, and the smell of heated metal filled the air. Among the busy engineers and mechanics, Lieutenant Daniel Ward worked quietly at his bench. He was one of the few humans stationed here, surrounded mostly by the towering alien warriors called the Thalkiri. The Thalkiri were famous across the galaxy. Tall, armored, and proud, they lived for battle. Their armor was not just protection, it was part of their honor. No Thalkiri warrior trusted anyone easily with it. That was why Daniel was surprised when his new assignment appeared on his datapad. Repair Commander Sira's battle armor. Daniel read the order twice. Commander Sira was not just any soldier. She was one of the most respected leaders of the Thalkiri fleet. He had seen her once from a distance. Her presence filled the room like thunder. Her armor, black with silver patterns, carried scars of many battles. For her to allow a human engineer to repair it was no small matter. When Sira arrived at his workshop, Daniel had to tilt his head back to meet her eyes. She stood tall, her horns curving slightly backward, her armored plates scratched and scorched from recent combat. Even without a word, she radiated strength. "Lieutenant Ward," she said in a low, steady voice, "they tell me you are skilled." "My armor requires more than skill. It requires respect." Daniel swallowed, then nodded. "I'll treat it with care, Commander. You'll have it ready for battle again." Sira studied him for a long moment, then unfastened her chest plate. The heavy piece of armor landed on the workbench with a metallic thud. Daniel almost staggered from its weight. The plates were thicker than anything humans wore in combat suits. As he ran his hand along the surface, he noticed burn marks, deep cracks, and hairline fractures that could have been fatal if struck again. While Daniel set up his tools, Sira remained nearby, watching. Most warriors would have left the engineer to work, but she stood still, her golden eyes fixed on him. It made his movements careful, almost slow. He began by cleaning the outer layers, brushing away dust and plasma residue. Then he pulled out his repair torch and started sealing the cracks. His touch was steady, but he handled the armor with unusual gentleness. Where another mechanic might hammer and grind, Daniel worked with patience, adjusting each plate so the lines of the armor fit perfectly. Minutes stretched into hours. The docking bay grew quieter as other engineers finished their shifts. Only Daniel and Sira remained. Finally, she spoke. Her deep voice broke the silence. "You are touching the plates too softly for a warrior's armor." Daniel froze, unsure if it was criticism. "Too softly?" he asked, looking up. Sira tilted her head, curious rather than angry. "Among my people, armor is reforged with force. Hammer strikes, sparks, fire, you treat it as if it were fragile." Daniel smiled faintly and returned to his work. "Where I come from, fragile things matter too. If I press too hard, I might miss a hidden crack. Sometimes gentle hands find what strong ones overlook." For the first time, Sira's stern expression softened. It was not a smile, but there was something like thoughtfulness in her eyes. She leaned closer, watching as Daniel repaired the delicate energy channels inside the chest plate. His fingers moved with precision, adjusting wires and power cells that glowed faintly blue. "Strange," she murmured. "We see humans as small, quick, and fragile. Yet you find strength in patience," Daniel chuckled quietly. "Maybe that's the only strength we have, Commander. We can't outmatch the Thalkiri in battle, but we notice details. We keep things working when others think they're broken." Sira did not answer, but her gaze lingered on him as he finished sealing the last fracture. When Daniel lifted the armor piece to the light, it gleamed, restored, and whole again. He set it down gently. "There. Your armor should be stronger than before." Sira stepped forward, lifting the chest plate with one hand as if it weighed nothing. She studied the lines of the repair, running her claws over the seamless joins. At last she nodded. "It is well done," she said, her tone quieter than before. "Perhaps your softness carries more weight than a hammer's strike." Daniel felt a warmth of pride but tried not to show it. "I just do my job, Commander." Sira fastened the armor back onto her frame, the plates locking into place with a heavy click. As she turned to leave, she paused at the doorway. Her golden eyes met Daniel's once more. "You may not realize it, human," she said, "but today you have done more than repair armor. You have shown me something about your kind." Before Daniel could respond, she was gone, her footsteps echoing through the docking bay. Left alone, Daniel leaned against his bench. His hand still carried the weight of the armor, but his mind was elsewhere. He had come here to fix metal, yet somehow he felt he had begun to change how an alien warrior saw humanity. The station lights dimmed as night cycle began. Daniel cleaned his tools, but the commander's words stayed with him. For the first time since his arrival on the frontier, he felt that maybe, just maybe, humans had more to offer this galaxy than anyone believed, and this was only the beginning. Frontier Station 9 never truly slept. Lights hummed in the corridors, engines thrummed in the hangars, and voices echoed from every level. Yet there was a tension in the air that night, a heaviness that settled on the station like a storm about to break. Lieutenant Daniel Ward felt it too. He had spent the last few days repairing more Thalkiri armor than usual. Soldiers came to him with scorch marks, bent plates, and damaged weapons. Rumors whispered of enemy movement in the nearby systems. Daniel knew enough to realize trouble was coming. Commander Sira had visited once more, her armor now carrying only faint scratches thanks to his work. She had spoken little, but her nods of approval were enough for Daniel to know he had earned her respect. Even so, he never expected how soon that respect would be tested. The attack began suddenly. Sirens wailed through the station as red lights flashed along every hallway. Daniel was in the workshop when the first tremors shook the walls. He grabbed the edge of the bench to steady himself as a voice crackled over the intercom. Warning. Fair Dominion ships detected. All defense units prepare for battle. Daniel's heart pounded. The Fair Dominion was no ordinary threat. They were ruthless, known for breaking through armor with weapons designed to tear apart even the strongest plating. He had studied their tactics during training, but now it was no lesson. It was reality. The docking bay erupted with activity. Thalkiri warriors rushed to their ships, weapons glowing in their hands. In the center of it all stood Commander Sira, her tall figure commanding order even in chaos. Form ranks. Hold the corridors. Do not let them breach the inner levels, she ordered, her voice carrying over the noise. Daniel should have stayed behind in the workshop. Engineers were not meant for combat. But then he saw it. The faint flicker in Sira's armor systems. Sparks danced near her shoulder plate and the power conduits on her chest glowed unevenly. His stomach dropped. Her armor was failing. Without thinking, Daniel grabbed his portable repair kit and ran toward her. Commander! Your systems. Before he could finish, the station shook again as enemy fire hit the outer walls. Warriors braced themselves, shouting war cries. Sira looked down at him, her golden eyes burning with focus. They will not wait for repairs, she said. Then I'll fix it here, Daniel insisted, already kneeling by her side. He opened a panel on her chest plate, sparks snapping at his fingers. The energy cells had overloaded, and if left alone, the armor might shut down completely in the middle of battle. Sira frowned but allowed him to work, raising her massive weapon and firing at the approaching enemy soldiers. The Vare had already breached one corridor, their insect-like forms swarming with glowing blades and rifles. Daniel's hands moved quickly, adjusting wires, sealing circuits, and replacing fuses with parts from his kit. Blaster fire echoed all around him, and the ground shook with every explosion, yet his mind focused only on the delicate systems under his fingers. You are too calm, Sira said, striking down an enemy that came too close. Do humans not fear death? Daniel almost laughed. Of course we do. That's why I work fast. Fear makes me focus. Another surge ran through the armor, nearly knocking him back. He gritted his teeth and rebalanced the energy cells. There, you're stable again. Don't take another direct hit to the chest, though. This is only a patch. Sira looked down at him, a mix of surprise and respect in her expression. You mend armor while plasma flies around us. Perhaps fear sharpens you, human. Or maybe I'm just stubborn, Daniel replied, standing quickly. The enemy pressed harder. Fair warriors poured into the docking bay, their claws scraping against the floor as they attacked. The Thalkiri fought bravely, but the enemy's weapons cut deep into armor. For every warrior that fell, 2 more rushed forward. Daniel saw it clearly. The Thalkiri were strong, but their armor was not made to resist the Dominion's special weapons. Unless someone adapted quickly, the defense line would break. He shouted to Sira over the chaos. Their blades are cutting through because the energy shields aren't redirecting fast enough. If we reroute power to the outer plating, it might hold longer. Sira struck down another Vare soldier, then turned to him. Can you do it? Daniel's hands tightened around his toolkit. Yes, but I'll need to adjust the power nodes on the field while under fire. Her golden eyes locked on him. Then she gave a single sharp nod. Do it. I will cover you. What followed felt like a blur of fire and metal. Daniel ran between warriors, opening armor panels and rerouting power lines while Sira and her squad shielded him from enemy attacks. Sparks flew. Plasma bolts screamed past his head, and every second felt like it could be his last. Yet his adjustments worked. One by one, the Thalkiri armor systems adapted, their shields glowing brighter, their plates resisting the Dominion blades more effectively. Warriors who had been falling back now surged forward, regaining confidence. At the center of it all, Sira fought like a storm, her armor restored enough to let her lead the charge. But she never strayed far from Daniel, her massive frame guarding him when the fight grew too close. Finally, after what felt like endless hours, the enemy began to retreat. The surviving Ver soldiers pulled back toward their ships, their blades sparking uselessly against the reinforced armor. A cheer rose among the Thalkiri as the docking bay filled with the sound of victory. Daniel collapsed to one knee, exhausted but alive. His hands were blackened with soot, his clothes scorched in places, but he managed a tired grin. Sira approached him, lowering her massive weapon. She placed her armored gauntlet gently on his shoulder. "You fought with no weapon," she said, her voice carrying quiet strength. "Yet without you we would have fallen. You turned fear into focus and weakness into strength." Daniel looked up at her, breathing hard. "I only fixed what was broken." "That's my job," Sira shook her head slowly. "No, you gave us more than repairs. You gave us victory." Around them, the Thalkiri warriors were already spreading the tale. The human engineer who had fought with his mind and his hands, who had stood beside their commander in the heat of battle, who had kept their armor strong when even steel was failing. For the first time, Daniel realized they were not just looking at him as an outsider. They were looking at him as one of them. The battle was over, but he knew this was only the beginning of something greater. The battle with the Ver Dominion had ended, but Frontier Station 9 was far from peaceful. Smoke still drifted from damaged walls, injured warriors filled the medbay, and engineers worked without rest to restore power. Yet in the hearts of the defenders there was pride. Against a powerful enemy they had stood firm, and at the center of that pride stood Commander Sira and Lieutenant Daniel Ward. Word of their strange partnership had already spread across the station. Warriors spoke of the human who had repaired armor under fire, who had guided their systems when even seasoned Thalkiri engineers struggled. Many still found it difficult to believe, but none could deny the results. Daniel, however, felt uneasy. Victory had come, but he knew the Ver Dominion would not give up so easily. The way they retreated suggested strategy, not defeat. He feared the next attack would be worse. His fears were confirmed 3 days later. The Thalkiri Council gathered in the Great Chamber, a wide hall lined with banners and glowing crystal lights. Daniel stood at the back, an observer rather than a participant, as the councilors debated. "They will strike again," said one councilor, his armor polished and gleaming. "This time with greater force. We must call reinforcements and prepare for a siege." Another councilor shook her head. "Reinforcements are days away. If the Dominion strikes before then, we will be overrun." Voices rose, sharp and filled with tension. Some argued for retreat, others for direct attack. Through it all, Daniel listened, his mind racing. Finally, Commander Sira spoke. Her voice cut through the noise like a blade. "Enough, we cannot wait for reinforcements. Nor can we abandon this station. It guards the route to 3 colonies. If it falls, they fall with it." The chamber fell silent. Sira continued, "We must fight. But not only with strength. The Dominion knows our ways. They will expect us to meet them head on. We must surprise them." Her eyes shifted almost deliberately toward Daniel. He felt his heart quicken as the counselors followed her gaze. "You suggest the human?" one of them asked, disbelief in his tone. "He has already shown us the value of his mind," Sira said firmly. "His repairs and adjustments turned the tide of the last battle. He sees what we overlook. He thinks as we do not," the counselors murmured among themselves. At last, one turned toward Daniel. "Human, if you have wisdom, speak it now." Daniel stepped forward, feeling every eye on him. His hands trembled slightly, but his voice remained steady. "The Ver blades cut through armor because they target the weakest points. They're fast and they're clever. If we fight them directly, they'll keep finding cracks. But what if we give them something else to strike at? Something that looks real but isn't?" The counselors frowned in confusion. Sira, however, leaned forward with interest. "Explain." Daniel took a breath. "We can use damaged armor plates and scrap metal to build decoys. Hollow suits that look like warriors from a distance. If we place them in key positions, the Veer will waste time and weapons breaking through empty shells. Meanwhile, we strike from hidden angles. The chamber went silent again. Then slowly some of the counselors began to nod. It is unorthodox, one admitted. It is human, Sira said, her voice strong. And it may save us, the council voted. The plan was approved. The next 2 days were a blur of work. Daniel led a team of engineers, both human and Thalkiri, to construct the decoys. They worked with broken armor, spare plating, and power cells that emitted faint energy signals. From a distance, the hollow suits looked like real warriors standing ready. Sira visited often, checking the progress. Each time she watched Daniel with that same thoughtful expression she had shown in the workshop. Finally, as the last decoy was placed, she spoke quietly. You carry no weapon, yet you build them with your hands. You fight differently, but you fight all the same. Daniel smiled faintly. Maybe fighting isn't always about hitting harder. Sometimes it's about making the enemy hit the wrong thing. She tilted her head. A strange wisdom, but one I will trust. When the Veer returned, they came in greater numbers. Their ships darkened the stars, their weapons flashing as they rained fire on the station. The defenders braced themselves as enemy soldiers swarmed through the breached corridors. Just as Daniel predicted, the Veer rushed toward the decoys. Their glowing blades sliced through hollow armor. Their rifles blasted empty shells. For precious minutes they wasted their fury on ghosts. Then, from hidden passages and fortified positions, the Thalkiri struck. Sira led the charge, her warriors sweeping into the enemy's flank. Confusion spread among the Veer as their attacks met only illusions while real warriors cut them down from unexpected angles. Daniel watched from the command deck, monitoring the decoys' signals and guiding reinforcements where they were needed most. His heart pounded as alarms blared and reports came in. Some decoys fell, others held, but the plan was working. The Dominion was being outmaneuvered. At the height of the battle, Sira's voice rang through the comms. Push them back. Show them the strength of unity. Her warriors roared, their morale unbroken. Step by step, they forced the enemy toward their ships. Finally, after hours of brutal fighting, the Veer began to retreat once more. But this time, their losses were too great. Their ships pulled away, vanishing into the void, leaving the station standing. When the last alarms faded, the station erupted with cheers. Warriors pounded their fists against their armor. Engineers embraced, and the banners of victory were raised. In the command deck, Daniel let out a long breath of relief. He was exhausted, his body aching, but his spirit soared. The plan had worked. Humanity had proved itself once again. Sira entered the deck, her armor scarred but her posture proud. She walked straight to Daniel and stood before him. For a moment she said nothing, only studied him with those golden eyes. Then she spoke, her voice carrying the weight of respect. Today your mind was our weapon. Your plan saved us all. You are no longer only an engineer. You are a warrior in your own way. Daniel felt warmth rise in his chest. I only gave an idea. You and your warriors made it real. Sira placed her gauntlet gently on his shoulder, just as she had after the first battle. But this time her tone carried a hint of something lighter, almost teasing. Perhaps your gentle touch carries more strength than you know, she said. Daniel smiled, tired but proud. For the first time, he felt that humanity had found its place not as servants or observers, but as equals. The war was not over. The galaxy would face many more battles. But Daniel knew one thing for certain. Humans would no longer be overlooked. They had proven their worth not through sheer power, but through ingenuity, patience, and the courage to fight in their own way. And as he looked at Commander Sira, standing tall beside him, he realized something else. This was only the beginning of humanity's story among the stars.